myself again. But it's the only...
Hi and welcome along to NUFC Matters, and this is a special show with me, Steve Wraith, and Liam Kennedy from the Shields Gazette. And today we are looking at Liam's 9 number 9s, his top 9 number 9s, and we've gone back to 1990, and that list has been gained from all those players who pulled on the black and white shirt through that particular time. And we've done this so we can have a little bit of time off over Christmas. So Liam, welcome to you, mate.
Hi, happy Christmas, Steve. Whenever this goes out.
Happy Christmas and a happy new year to you too, mate. And let's hope 2021 is a better year for us all. Okay, let's kick it off. Who is your number 9?
Well, before we go into the names, I want to just talk a little bit about the shirt and the idea and the type of players that have had this shirt. It's Newcastle United. It's the most famous number at Newcastle United, as we all know. It hasn't always been occupied in the last 30 years. There have been gaps whereby players haven't taken it. Notably, there's been small gaps for the likes of when Demba Ba didn't take it, Papi Cisse took it. There's been little gaps in play, but overall it's been pretty much occupied by storied strikers who traditionally scored goals. Look, we're looking at the moment in a striker in Joe Linden who really struggles to hit the back of the net. He isn't a traditional Newcastle number 9, and it's something that maybe weighs a little bit heavy on him, but he's not the only one who's maybe struggled a little bit with the weight of number 9, and he won't be the last either. There'll probably be others beyond him. But yeah, 11 notable players in that time have had the shirt. There's a couple of players cut out, Joe Linden being one. We're not counting him in the list of 9-9s. Andy Carroll's the other notable absentee. Had it for a short period before a really high profile move away. Since come back to the club and not really scored goals, but he did manage to get 33 goals in total in his 67 starts so far, and a lot of those all of those goals, most of those goals, in the number 9 shirt. But we'll come on to number 9 then. Number 9, Steve, is, for me, Dwight Gayle. A striker who people might actually forget. I know it's only a short time ago, but they might actually forget that he donned the number 9 shirt when he arrived at Newcastle United, signed for a significant fee from Crystal Palace, around £10 million, brought in under Rafa Benitez with the sole focus of scoring enough goals to get Newcastle United out of the Championship and back into the Premier League where they belong. And look, he did that. He really did. He scored a lot of goals that season. Did what he was meant to do. Took the number 9. It was a close call. I know Alexander Mitrovich at the time. There was a lot of talk that he might have got the number 9. And Newcastle United fan as a boy was the number 45. 4 plus 5 is 9. You work out why he took that number. In total, in his time at Newcastle, because we've seen him with the 9, we've seen him lose the 9. Solomon Rondon got the 9. We've seen him move elsewhere and not get the 9 when Joe Linden came. Joe Linden got that 9 instead of Dwight Gayle. So there's been some controversy about the way the 9's been passed around when Dwight Gayle has been at the club, but it was originally his number. He wears number 12 now. In total, in his time at Newcastle United, this is with 9 and without 9, with 12 at the moment, 34 goals and 60 starts. There's a lot of subs in there as well, mind. I mean, we're talking about almost as many substitute appearances as starts with Dwight Gayle, but that's a pretty good record when you look at it. A lot of those goals, 23 of them came in that Championship season when Newcastle United won the Championship on the final day, 2016-17, with that absolutely, it's a mini high point in Newcastle United's recent history was that final day of the season. I don't know how you remember it, Steve, but it was just fantastic. And Dwight Gayle played a really key moment in that and will always be remembered because he scored the goal, was doing the Newcastle's going up, Sunderland's going down celebration at the Gallagher end, peeling away. And then that was when the ripple of realisation went around the ground that Jack Grealish had scored for Aston Villa against Brighton, meaning Newcastle United, with minutes to go in that game, in the games in the Championship that season, went back to the top of the league and won historically right on the final moments of that season. It really was a fantastic bit of history that was. I know we don't win it. We haven't won a lot in our lifetimes. We haven't won anything really, but so little moments like that really have to, hold quite high. And Dwight Gayle wrote himself his own little bit of history there, for me anyway, with that celebration. That season, that first season in particular, Newcastle United had a few standout players, and that first season, he was probably known as the best finisher in the division. Like I say, got 23 of his 34 goals in that season. Was fantastic. Complemented the likes of Daryl Murphy, Alexander Mitrovich, not so much, but Daryl Murphy particularly well in getting Newcastle United up that season. And overall, a fantastic second tier player. Hasn't quite consistently been able to make that step up to the top division. He got, I think it was 6 goals in 37 that first season after promotion, sort of intertwining with Hosselu. Didn't ever really. I think Rafa Benitez would love to have kept him at the club as a player who could come in and out, a second choice striker, and sign a first choice striker to complement Dwight Gayle, but never really got the funds to do so. And I think ever since then, we've seen a Dwight Gayle go out on loan to West Brom, score a stack full of goals again. I think he bettered his tally in the Championship when he was at West Brom. I think he got 24 goals when he was down there in that season. Has since come back, and we've seen probably 18 months to 2 years of Dwight Gayle where we've seen very little of him out on the pitch. But I think particularly his goals recently, particularly in Project Restart, have shown that he's a man who knows where the back of the net is, and he kind of knows where he needs to be and plays as a proper striker, which is something Newcastle have lacked with a real number 9 at the moment, Joe Linden. So for me, he does rank. We'll put him in this because he has played a particularly key part in recent history, but has never quite replicated that in the top division. Look, there's time to go. He may well still do that. But injuries have always been a problem. Even in that 23-goal season, Dwight Gayle struggled with injuries from the January onwards, and that was when Newcastle's sort of train came off the rails a little bit in that season. But for me, number 9, in the number 9's since 1990, Dwight Gayle.
Good stuff. Good start. He started to score a few goals recently as well. So let's hope that little run continues through this season. Who's at number 8?
So another player who maybe will divide opinion somewhat. Papi Cissé.
Okay.
I would argue Papi Cissé, of all of the players in this list, and this is possibly going to be controversial because I know there's fantastic starts made to life at Newcastle from the likes of Mickey Quinn, Les Ferdinand, Andy Cole and others. But for bursting on the scene in a black and white shirt, there's been very few players in Newcastle United's history done what Papi Cissé did. Came from Freiburg in Germany, was a January signing. We already had Demba Ba that season. Newcastle United drove on, probably could have finished 4th, and just missed out on the Champions League and ended up in the Europa League. The only time Newcastle United have qualified for Europe in Mike Ashley's ownership of the football club. He was signed in that January, quite a surprise signing. Nobody expected Newcastle United to go out and sign a player for that kind of money. They did so, and he really announced himself on the Premier League in really incredible fashion. He was unstoppable. I would say that period from January to May, Papi Cissé, there has been very few strikers in Premier League history have had that kind of impact in a black and white shirt. He was unbelievable. Scored. He got 16 goals in his first season in Newcastle United. That was unbelievable. He burst on the scene. I was there for his debut. When he came off the bench against Aston Villa and scored a cracker, and the crackers just didn't stop coming. Literally everything he touched for that 5 months hit the back of the net. Everybody remembers that Chelsea goal, the one that loops and hoops over the top of the goalkeeper and into the net. Incredible at Stamford Bridge. I would actually argue the first goal, which everyone forgets about, which is the ball comes across and he absolutely smashes it in on a half volley again, was another one of those where it was probably just as good technique anyway, because the other one felt a little bit lucky in some ways. He knew he was trying it, but it was that kind of confidence that he came to the club with. Newcastle United were playing with a swagger. They had Kabais, Tiotes, hadn't been Arthurs, Demba Bars. They really were playing with a fantastic swagger. Really, one of the only Mike Ashley teams that's been probably a jewel in the Premier League crown. There's been very few other teams you could argue have made much of an impact on the Premier League, but that Alan Pardew side of that season, and that's I'm very important to say just that season because it was struggles either side. But that was fantastic, and Papi Cisse played a real part in that. He almost drove Premier League, Champions League football, and then he brought that back to Newcastle United. A few key sort of goals to pick out. Obviously, everyone remembers the Chelsea one, but one that really sticks in the memory for me. I was actually living away at the time. I can't remember if I was living in London or Scotland, because as regular listeners to the show know, I've worked all over the shop. So I was either in Scotland or London. I used to come back for games. I used to come down or up on the train. And I remember coming back for the Anzi game. And he scored, I think it was about the 94th, 95th minute, popped up with a winner and got Newcastle United through. I think it might have been to the quarterfinals at that stage of the Europa League. It was a really tough season that year after. Newcastle United flirted with relegation for large parts of that campaign, but kept driving towards European glory and came within a whisker. Got beat off Benfica that season and probably could have went a little bit further in the competition. But all in all, like I said, I've mentioned the Villa goal, I've mentioned the Chelsea goals, Anzi, really memorable goals. Papi Cisse, though, for all those positives that I've brought in, struggled with injuries in time and real dips in form. The large part of the end of his Newcastle United career was particularly barren for goals. Performances were really hard to come by. That confidence and swagger that really was a real refreshment in his game when he first broke on the scene. Newcastle was hard to come by towards the end, and I think it was symptomatic of that team, of the setup. There was some real low points. He really struggled for goals, but ultimately was a number 9 who did score quite a lot of goals for Newcastle United. In total, in all competitions, managed to score 44 goals. That was 100, came from 100, exactly 100 starts in all competitions. So nearly 1 and 2 when he started games. Obviously, a stack load of substitute appearances there. But for a number 8 in the number 9 list, not a bad shout.
No, good shout as well. As you say, memorable goals. The one against Chelsea, you can watch it all day. But played with a smile on his face. We hear this about Almiron, constantly playing with a smile on his face. But Cisse did as well, and he was a breath of fresh air at a time when supporters were probably a little bit against Pardew. There was all the talk of the Cockney Mafia thing, which was just a fabrication of the press. But yeah, he was a great player to have, and Demba Ba came in as well. He was another good player to play alongside him. When we were talking off air, of course, in my mind, I was thinking, was he number 9? But he was actually a number 19, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, that's the thing. That there's been other strikers who've been through the books during this time who have been worthy of the number 9, but not had it. We have one at the moment. Callum Wilson is everything Newcastle United want in a number 9, but hasn't got the shirt. Has decided to take the number 13 shirt, which is the shirt he wore at Bournemouth. But I think I said this in the summer. I really would have liked to. I like a striker with confidence, and this is not saying he hasn't, but I would love to have seen him come in the summer. And this isn't a criticism, and just say, look, I'm coming to Newcastle United, and I'll wear the number 9 if I'm coming to Newcastle United. I would love to have seen him just say, I want that shirt. He gave his reasons why he didn't. He said he didn't want to upset the apple cart coming to a new football club, didn't want to upset players around him. And look, I respect that as well. But I think when you look at Callum Wilson, he's a type of player that Newcastle United fans worship. We love our number 9s on Tyneside. We love our goal scorers. Going back to the 1920s and Hughie Gallagher and players like that, these number 9s are a part of Newcastle United folklore, part of history. Everybody, you go through all your generations, your dads, your granddads, your great-granddads, if you're young enough to see them living. They'll always tell you the story of a Newcastle United number 9, somebody who carried the hopes and dreams of a region and a city on the back of their shirt. We've all had them. My particular generation, and we'll come on to them, everybody knows who are worshipped as a number 9. I think most people of all generations worshipped him too. But yeah, it's just such a fantastic shirt and folklore, and there aren't many clubs around the country that have this kind of connection, in particular with a particular position and a particular number. So yeah, like I say, Papi Cisse, we've seen Demba Ba didn't have it, probably could have been well worthy of a number 9 shirt, but like you say, had 19. That kind of brings on to we'll stay with the African-based strikers theme, and that would bring me on to number 7 in the list, and that's Obafemi Martins. So Obafemi Martins didn't play in particularly great Newcastle United sides, Played on the likes of Glenn Roder, Kevin Keegan the second time round, and others. Wasn't everybody's cup of tea. But look at his goal record. 35 goals in 89 starts. Again, an incredible record. Took the number 9 shirt, was actually the player who took the number 9 shirt following Alan Shearer. Everybody kind of expected after Alan Shearer left that numbers would be rearranged and Michael Owen would take the Newcastle United number 9 shirt at the time. Never happened. Obviously, Michael Owen got that really high-profile injury playing for England, and just he never really kicked on from there, and never ever got the number 9. Obafemi Martins got it. It was a £10 million capture from Inter Milan. A lot of excitement at the time. He was a young, exciting, quick. Could play with both feet. Used to take penalties with both feet, right and left. Used to frustrate the life out of a lot of people doing that kind of thing. But he was just that confident. Had again another player who had a swagger about him. Not a traditional Alan Shearer replacement as the 9, but really did with his acrobat. He had like acrobatic celebrations. Scored really flamboyant and explosive goals. It was actually quite an exciting number 9, and I did toy with maybe pushing him up the list a little bit, maybe it's a little touch because of that, because he was a striker when I started. When I was going, obviously had a season ticket in Newcastle United. Was at the age where I was starting to go to a few away games, starting to really, and Obafemi Martins, the likes of I used to love Emre, and it was that kind of era where it was just like I was really getting Newcastle United home and away, and it was a player that really excited me. I've mentioned his penalties with both feet. That goal at Spurs, I think that's the one that everybody recalls. Newcastle United won at White Hart Lane away from home, and it was just that. I've rarely seen players with that kind of technique. You've seen players hit good balls and score good goals, but the type of technique that he scored that goal with, it was just, you could smash the back off a net from a standing start the way he hit a ball. And he used to lift his whole body off the floor when he struck it. It's quite an incredible technique the way he hit that goal. But it wasn't alone. He scored 3 or 4 like that. He would score one week. He would score one like that with his left foot, and then he would score one with his right foot, just equally as good. He was a very unique type of player. But again, somebody who may be frustrated a little bit. Couldn't quite. Obviously, we had Michael Owen. He was fighting against to get in the team then, and others. And it wasn't. He won't be remembered as a great number 9, but for me, quite an exciting one. I've got a little story. One of my big memories was probably a December. I think it would have been December. We went to Blackburn away, and I remember him scoring right in the last minute when Blackburn, it was 2-1 to Newcastle. I think Stephen Taylor scored in the same game, and everyone at Blackburn had thrown all their players forward, including the goalkeeper. And I remember Obafemi Martins strolling through and nipping inside a couple of people and then scoring from distance in an open goal. Just little things like that stick in my memory. That for me, he was quite a special player. And like I said, 35 goals in 89 starts isn't really a bad return for a number 9 at number 7? Number 7 on the list.
Yeah,
number 9s.
He was a great lad. He was a great lad off the pitch. I mean, I was working the doors in Newcastle at the time when he was there, but he was very good friends with Ray O'Sheen, who played centre forward for my Sunday team, who I used to manage in Felon. So I had many nights out with Oba, and he was a party animal. But he was a lovely guy. I ended up with about 7 or 8 of his number 9 shirts. Some I've given away, some I've raffled off, and others I've sold. I've kept a hold of one. He scored a goal against Man City. I've kept a hold of that. I've got the programme, the ticket. I was at the game, and obviously the shirt. But yeah, look, Oba was a really nice guy. His heart was in the right place. Nobody really knew how old he was. He had a touch of the Roger Millers about him. Nobody was quite sure how old he was, but he was young at heart and top guy. And as you say, not the greatest period of Newcastle United's history, it has to be said, but quite a talent, and we've got to consider ourselves lucky to see him, really.
Yeah, I agree. It's quite interesting you say that, because you only have to scratch the surface around Tyneside to hear all kinds of stories about Obafemi Martins.
Unfortunately, a lot of the stories about the ex-Newcastle players, I'll be taking them to me grave. I do like putting stories out, but believe you me, there's some stories are best left unmentioned. And running a company like Newcastle Legends, it's probably the best thing.
Tales of a Doorman, that's what I'm waiting for from you, Steve.
Possibly one day, mate. Possibly one day.
So
who's number 6? Who's number 6?
Number 6. A recent one. To everyone out there, don't worry. We'll come on to some of the golden oldies soon. But probably the last of the most recent ones would be Salomon Rondon would come in. Only did a season in Newcastle United. But again, was a kind of a throwback striker. Played very well, complemented by the work rate of Jose Perez. A big, strong centre forward. Good in the air. I can remember was a header against Bournemouth, across from Kennedy from the left-hand side, and a booming header at the Leazes end. Particularly sticks in my mind. Some really crucial goals in the season that Newcastle United finished under Rafa Benitez really, really strongly. And it's a shame we didn't It's a shame we didn't keep Rafa Benitez, but it's also a shame that we didn't see Salomon Rondon signed permanently at the football club. Because, look, I think maybe I've put him reasonably high in this list. That could be because of circumstance. Newcastle United hadn't really seen a proper number 9 as the type that we see for quite some time until Rondon came on the scene, and he really filled a gap that was really cavernous at Newcastle United. That was so desperate for a proper striker to pin that number 9 on. Rondon came in. Remember, if everyone remembers, did take some time. Came to the football club, was never going to stay at West Brom after they'd been relegated. A lot of problems with the transfer. Took longer than Rafa Benitez in particular expected. We'd hoped to just pay the 16.5 million release clause. Wasn't allowed to do so from the hierarchy. Had to end up striking an unusual deal, to be honest, where they had to. They took him on. Rondon signed a year-long extension at West Brom. So they protected their money. Dwight Gayle also signed a new contract at Newcastle United. Didn't get an extension, but did get a bump in cash, which has been one of the issues when they've tried to rid him to a championship club maybe in the last 2 years, that he's priced out with those kind of moves because of the bump in pay that was given to him that summer to get this Rondon deal over the line. But ultimately, Rafa Benitez was right in doing what he did. It's left Newcastle with Gayle on more money than you would expect, but it brought a striker to the football club that Newcastle desperately needed at the time. And in that season, scored 12 goals, got into double figures. After a really slow start of the season, struggled for fitness because of this sort of wrangling over transfers and contracts and release clauses. Didn't play any pre-season with West Brom that year. Wasn't always involved in first team training, and we saw a player coming into the season quite raw in terms of fitness, and it probably took him to maybe the October to really start showing the kind of quality international footballer as well that he was on Tyneside. And like I say, 12 goals in a season whereby he then left to follow Rafa Benitez to Dalian in China. And I think looking at him now, fingers crossed, with all hope that one day, if Rafa does return to Newcastle United, then maybe Salomon Rondon will come hand in hand too. So I wouldn't write that one off. I wouldn't say that one's over, but they're both earning fantastic money out there in China. Not sure they're particularly enjoying the experience out there, but so fingers crossed that things can move on. But Salomon Rondon for me, slightly edges ahead of the others, the likes of Obafemi Martins, because of the feeling that he gave to Newcastle United that season, that because Newcastle United fans have been longing for a number 9, a proper striker, and he really filled that void.
Great stuff. Who's number 5 on your list then, Liam?
Right, on your list here. So number 5, this is our throwback. This is our throwback era. We go back to Mickey Quinn. So that's who started the 90s. Is Newcastle United's first real iconic number 9 of the last 30 years. Now there's a throwback picture as well, Steve.
Who's that young lad on the left with hair?
Where you dug that one from?
That was when the club used to do. That's when the club used to do their own where they used to allow the supporters club that was based at the Haymarket, which is no longer there now, where you've got Marks and Spencer's, etc., and the bus station. There used to be a row of terrace shops there where the official Newcastle United supporters club was, and every year the club used to give us a room. That now, I believe, the room that we're in there is now where the press room is. But we used to go into there, and the club allowed us to have the room for free, and we would have our own Player of the Season award. So Mickey Quinn won Player of the Season that year, and there's me, Mickey, and me pal Matty at the time. A couple more from that day actually. There's me and John Anderson and John Gallagher. There's the Mighty Quinn fanzine in me hand, and Mark Stimson there, and Roy Aitken. Feed the bear, Big Roy. So happy memories, mate. But yeah, Mickey Quinn, obviously you're just about to touch on him. I was there that day. There was a supporters boycott on, but I didn't boycott. I went to the game. I think it was about 24,000 there, Liam. And Mickey Quinn got 4 goals. All 4 goals in a 5-2 win. That's the kind of 5-2 win against Leeds that should be happening now. We shouldn't be getting beat 5-2 off Leeds.
Oh. The pink as well. I'm loving this. I was enjoying the boards on that picture as well.
All right. Well, free colour poster of Kevin Dillon in the pink next week. I'm glad to see I missed that issue. But yeah, there we go. Tudor crisps, Sunbright, Pierce Signs, Guinness. Fantastic, man. What a day that was. It was boiling hot as well. Absolutely roasting. But what a day. But yeah, Mickey Quinn rightly takes his place on your list. Give us his stats.
4 goals on home debut, as you mentioned there. A real iconic figure. A little bit heavy. Used to take a bit of criticism for his weight and that kind of thing. But
he's fat, he's round, he's worth £1 million, Mickey Quinn.
But a fantastic goal scorer all the same. Really, really effective in a black and white shirt. In total, scored 59 goals. 115 games that came from. Again, we're going through this list, and I think it's only when you go through this list and actually write down the statistics that you realise, not even looking too far into the distant past, we all remember and think, oh, well, we haven't had that many good number 9s. You know what I mean? We've had some fantastic ones, and there's been some rubbish as well, which there has. If we'd gone a little bit further back, you'll vouch for this. There has been some rubbish number 9s down the years.
Yeah.
But the thing is, there's also been some really good ones, and ones that have really chipped in with goals. In black and white. Like I say, 59 goals in 115 games from Mickey Quinn cannot really be argued with. A fantastic record. A lot of that, obviously, it's on second tier and the likes, but a fantastic record for Newcastle United. And left, was it in 92, 93, went to Coventry on from there and scored goals there. There's literally a type of striker who scored goals everywhere he's went, and has a special place in Newcastle United fans' heart. And another one, you've got to be remembered, there's been a lot of players that have left Newcastle United over the years and have rubbished the club. Or Mickey Quinn, you hear him on the radio, you hear him whatever he does, any punditry work that he does, he always speaks well of Newcastle United. Always talks up the club. Understands, really gets. He's not from this area. He's a Scouser, but really gets what Newcastle United's about. And a lot of that comes from those 3 or 4 years that you wore that number 9 on the back of his shirt.
Yeah, top guy, top player. Somebody who keeps in touch with us as well, and on a regular basis, done a few shows with him in the past as well. But you're right, 100%. Got the club, got the area. Top player. Great shout to have him in your top 9. Next up then is we're into the top 4. Who's just outside the magical top 3?
So I think everybody can kind of guess the direction this is going. I think there's very few people will argue with these kind of positionings. Further down the list, open for suggestions. The top 3 pretty much picks itself. So that leaves one on the outside of that, unlucky to miss out, and that's David Kelly. David Kelly, fantastic footballer. I talked earlier about little moments in history when I was referencing Dwight Gayle. Little moments in history, massive moments in history when you mentioned David Kelly. And every Newcastle United fan worth a salt, if you weren't old enough, you've been told about it by your dad or your granddad or your uncle or your friend or whatever. Everybody understands how crucial one goal that David Kelly scored for Newcastle United. Kept Newcastle United alive and kicking, kept them in the second division at the end of that season. A fantastic goal. You'll be able to tell us a little bit more about that, Steve. 'Cause that was,
Yeah, I mean, Portsmouth is what I think you're referring to, and
Yeah.
you know, ultimately a goal that, you know, secured our place in that division. We still had to go to Leicester, obviously the last game of the season, something which I think we've talked about on the shows before. You know, and there's my ticket from that game actually, Leicester City away. 2nd of May 1992. Found it in the loft at the start of lockdown. Yeah, £7 unreserved. We were down at the front in the lower tier, East Stand, down at Filbert Street. But yeah, what a day that was. Absolutely mortal on the bus. Got there, sang our hearts out. Fencing was still up at the sides, but not towards the pitch. And yeah, I mean, Kelly obviously didn't. It was, you know, it was an own goal that eventually secured our place and results going our way. But that Portsmouth game that you mentioned, it went a long way to keeping Newcastle's second division place intact. And then, of course, the rest is history. David Kelly went on to become, one of the stars of the promotion team that season, alongside, you know, the likes of Gavin Peacock and Pavel Cernacek and Rob Lee. You know, Andy Cole coming in at the back end of that as well. It was fantastic. It was just an amazing experience. And he's been back up. He's done a few things for Show Racism, the Red Card in the Northeast. He's done a talk-in for me in the Northeast as well. He's got a great affinity with the area, a great affinity with the club, and he'll always be, you know, welcomed, you know, in Newcastle.
Top scorer of that promotion season was absolutely fantastic. Like you said, a bedrock of that team. In total, 35 and 70 for Newcastle United. Crucial contributions. Maybe I think some people maybe think could he have stayed at the football club longer. It seems to have been a decision by Kevin Keegan at the time. You might be reflect more on this that he was let go. They brought the likes of Peter Beardsley in, who was maybe more suited to the top flight, and it was just probably a case of just he couldn't be kept because he wouldn't have played as many games for Newcastle in the top flight.
He had a phone call off Kevin, basically saying that you know, that he was surplus to requirements and he was going to let him go, and that you know, David Kelly, typically of the man, he had a mobile phone in his car, was quite relatively new thing to have in that period of time, and he says, all right, well, who are you bringing in to replace us? And he went, Peter Beardsley, and he went, all right, fair enough. And he says, I was delighted for Newcastle that they were going to progress and get somebody along the standards of Peter Beardsley. He says, I'd love to have played with him, but didn't get that opportunity. And he says, I didn't hold any malice towards Kevin for at least being honest and straight with us. Obviously, we lost Gavin Peacock as well. His son had been born with disability, and you know, he obviously moved for family reasons. So we lost the two mainstays of the attacking options that we had. But obviously, we'd brought in Andy Cole and then Peter Beardsley. I mean, and we all know what happened after that. The birth of the entertainers had happened in the Championship and then the Premiership. Well, we took that by storm, and the rest, as they say, is history. But yeah, great servant, and you know, professional footballer, still involved within football today.
And that kind of sort of brings us quite smoothly onto the top three, really. We're talking about the top three. Like I said, for many people, the top three picks itself. Number one is number one. We're probably not going to argue on that one. Number three and number two, we may argue a little bit on. There might be some people see things slightly differently. I've got my own opinions on this, and that's why, for this reason, I'm going to put Andy Cole at number three.
He doesn't look very happy about it.
No, he's not. And I'm not surprised. I think, do you know what? I think it's not necessarily what Andy Cole, this is my personal opinion. It's not necessarily what Andy Cole did on the pitch that means he isn't number two. I would argue his goal scoring exploits, the records that he broke, put him quite clearly at number two. But it's my memories. We're talking about my list, and that's why I would always probably have somebody else slightly ahead of him. I remember being absolutely heartbroken, devastated. I was just a young lad. Andy Cole was the number 9. Scored goals. It was just always in the right place at the right time. Scored all kinds of poachers goals. Just, he could beat a man. He was just such a lively striker in and around the box. Really unbelievable signing. Scored incredible goals, incredible amounts of goals. Only cost Newcastle United 1.75 million in the February of 1993 from Bristol City. That's right, isn't it?
Yeah.
A fantastic amount of money, really. Quite a lot of money for the player that he was. He was at Arsenal previously. He'd gone and scored goals at Bristol City. But really, when he came to Newcastle United, just took Tyneside by storm. And again, we're talking about warming to strikers. He had everything. He had everything that Newcastle United would want in a number 9. But departed, and it's the stuff after. It's the team that Newcastle United were fighting against Manchester United at the time, and it was the team that he signed for. He signed for Newcastle United at that time's biggest rivals, almost for the title and for honours in England, and didn't cover himself in glory in the way that he acted following that move. Obviously, remember the Kevin Keegan on the steps, having to explain to fans why he'd sold the number 9. Newcastle United's our own, he's ours. Why we sold him to Manchester United? But it's one of those things that I think those emotions that come with Andy Cole are the reason why he's probably been dropped down to number 3. I don't know what your thoughts on it, Steve, because it was an emotional time on Tyneside when he left, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was an emotional time. I mean, look, I think his reputation has been sullied by the fact that he was at Wembley, singing with the Man United players, cheer up Kevin Keegan. It's the reason that Newcastle fans have a downer on him these days. But ultimately for me, I can't look past that wonderful day. Newcastle United 5, Aston Villa 1 in April 1994, where Andy Cole broke a record which had stood at St James's Park since 1960. Well, no, it had been there since 1927, 69 years later. Hughie Gallagher's goal scoring record, goals in a season, and he created a new club record that day, hitting his 40th goal in all competitions. And of course, that was putting Newcastle 3 points clear of Arsenal, who were their main rivals that season for the 3rd place finish in the Premier League, which was for, at that time, UEFA Cup qualification. So yeah, I mean, I can understand people's negativity towards him. I can understand why people are against him because of what he did. But look, he was a terrific servant to the club. You've already announced the stats there that he had, and his goal scoring ratio was superb. He was an exciting player, and the goals that he used to score, and the partnership that he had with Peter Beardsley is probably one of the best ones that I can remember in recent times. I think the top 2 that you've got of these number 9s probably had an equally good season in the year we nearly won the league, I think. But look, from my point of view, Beardsley and Cole was something special, and I think we should give Andy Cole a bit of a reprieve. I think he's a club legend, still holds the record that Hughie Gallagher once held. He deserves a lot of credit for that.
Still holds a Premier League record in that partnership you talked about as well, in combined goals totals of strike partnerships with Peter Beardsley from that season. Like you say, 40 goals in all competitions. Peter Beardsley chipped in with 20 odd himself. It was an incredible season for Newcastle United strikers. And that was the like you said, the very start of that entertainers kind of era. And like I say, I look at these stats. He got 68 goals in 81 appearances. You will not find a better strike rate in modern football, in black and white. And for that reason, many people will argue that he's their number 2. For me, it is purely thinking back to being a young lad, thinking back to being about 8 years old and wiping tears off my face when he left the club. That kind of emotion to me, and seeing the heights that he went on to after that, the fantastic career that he had at Manchester United. He was involved in the great treble winning side of Manchester United in 1999, and beat Newcastle United in cup finals at Wembley, all that kind of thing, and just that emotion that goes with it for me. Why he's pipped to the post, and that brings out number 2 in the list. I think everybody knows who I'm going to mention, and that's Les Ferdinand. Interesting picture of Les there.
He actually looks happier than Andy Cole looked about being number 3, doesn't he?
I think he's shocked. He thought he was going to be 1, I think.
Yeah, so why is Les Ferdinand your number 2?
To me, Les Ferdinand kind of represents almost the absolute perfect striker. Like I say, I probably look at this through like rose-tinted spectacles in a lot of ways, because I was a kid. I was learning the game myself, loving the game. It was, remember back to that time, and it was, Newcastle United was more than just a football club. Anybody who was on Tyneside, anybody in the UK actually, who was around that time when Newcastle United was signing, that summer they signed Warren Barton, the most money anybody had paid for a defender in English history. Xhaka Hislop, David Ginola, this incredible maverick Frenchman who came in, who was just an absolute, who lit up the Premier League, and then Les Ferdinand took Newcastle United onto a totally different level. We'd lost the goals of Andy Cole at that time. They were quite easily replaced by Les Ferdinand. They went on a fantastic run that first season. Newcastle United were just a breath of fresh air. It was, like I said, more than a football club. It was a movement. Everybody wanted to be a part of Newcastle United. And Les Ferdinand was one of the cornerstones of that side. If you look over his time at Newcastle United in total, I think it was that first season he got 29 goals. He won the PFA Player of the Year award. He was the real poster boy of that first push towards the title. The year that they really should have won it, that they threw away that incredible points lead from January onwards. The best striker in the country at that time by quite some considerable distance, in my opinion. In terms of the amount of goals that he scored, and just hung in the air for headers, was physical, was quick, just had everything about him really. Could score any kind of goal. I think I probably hold him up on a pedestal because I remember Andy Cole previously when I was younger, but Les Ferdinand to me was the real number 9. He was the real deal at Newcastle United. Wasn't a surprise when Newcastle United signed him how good he was going to be, because you just have to look back on his career at QPR in the top flight previous to that. A fantastic goal scorer, one of the best around, and really natural goal scorer. And the one thing that I really hold with Les Ferdinand is it's just the way it ended again. Kind of has those question marks. You just wish he could have it could have been engineered that he would have stayed at the football club longer. Everybody knows the stories around that when he left, and how he nearly didn't leave, how almost there was a phone call, come back. No, he was going to his club, and he went to his club. He went to Tottenham Hotspur, went down there, and again continued a fantastic Premier League career.
Yeah.
Went all over the place, played for likes of Leicester, Tottenham and others, and really kept scoring goals right into the autumn of his career. In the Premier League. Like I say, 29 goals that first season. In total, 50 in 84 for Newcastle United. And for me, an absolute beast. Like an incredible striker who virtually had everything, and somebody that I really do, like I've said, hold up on a pedestal. Your thoughts on Les Ferdinand, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, Les Ferdinand was superb. Great role model for the club. Came at a wonderful time. I remember that first game at St James's against Chelsea, another hot sunny day, and, just banging that goal in. Trying to remember who the keeper was now for Chelsea. It was the guy who used to wear tracksuit bottoms. Even in August, he must have been sweating, but it was just a great time. And his link-up play with, with a team, with Shearer, Beardsley, and the like was just second to none. It was just a refreshing time and a great time to be a Newcastle fan. 52,000 people now, barely murmur a song, when they're in St James's Park. But you go back to those times when, the crowd, the stadium was being developed, and, at times, the capacity wasn't quite what it was now. And, it was electric. The atmosphere was electric. Everyone had a black and white replica shirt on. The place was bouncing. Just wonderful memories. But yeah, Les, great servant, man of his word as well, of course, when he came to leave the club. Obviously Alan got that horrendous injury at Everton at Goodison Park, cruciate ligament injury. And we ended up in a situation where, Dalglish and the board basically tried to get Les to say no to Tottenham and to stay at Newcastle. And he said, no, I've given them my word, I've got to go. And with hindsight, I know, because I've done a couple of talk-ins with Les, he wishes now that he stayed. Do you know what I mean? And who knows what would have happened. But, he was a man of his word. He made his decision and off he went. And we had a season of John Dahl Thomason, Ian Rush, John Barnes, Stuart Pearce. It was... They do those kind of things as reality programs now with those kind of players that age. But yeah, it's it's not one of those things you can ever take away. You've seen him, you saw him in a black and white shirt, and nobody could jump higher or better than Les and put the ball in the back of the net than him. I remember him at QPR. I'm old enough to remember him at QPR, and he was a great turn there. So, yeah, great stuff, and not surprised to see that he's number 2 because, of course, I think would get hung, drawn and quartered if anybody else was number 1 in this list. But who is your number 1, number 9?
So we've all been waiting for it. My number 1 on the list is Andy Carroll. No, I mean, I'm only joking. It's Alan Shearer, as we all know. Alan Shearer. Just another iconic. It doesn't even do it justice. I'm saying iconic. That doesn't even come close to what Alan Shearer represents. If you're a Newcastle United fan, look, we'll just go through some of his stats. 206 goals, broke every kind of possible record. Used to break at Newcastle United. The only thing that he didn't do is when pick up a trophy, as many other people will remind Newcastle United fans. But he said plenty of times that it didn't matter to him. He wanted to wear the iconic shirt of his football club. Was a great servant of the football club, an icon off the field as much as he is on the field with his champions the Newcastle United cause, in his punditry work, in his media work, everything that he does. Walk anywhere around the world, travel to South America, to the Far East, wherever, mention the word Newcastle United, and very soon after, anybody will mention Alan Shearer. Soon after, he's that kind of iconic figure. Newcastle United signed him when he was the best striker in the world, arguably, with the likes of Ronaldo, the other Ronaldo, not the current Ronaldo, the Brazilian Ronaldo, the one in my opinion who was even better than him. But just an incredible striker. 206 goals in total, like I say. League runner-up in 97. Losing FA Cup finalist twice. Didn't Charity Shield Newcastle lost as well. So lots of runners-up medals in his locker. Shame he never quite got that title. But go back on the 206 goals. Breaking it down, he scored 49 goals with his head, 49 headers in 206. He scored penalties, he scored free kicks, smashed free kicks in from anywhere. Had that lovely little touch, Solano touch, and then he would smash one in. He could curl them in. He could just every kind of goal Alan Shearer could score. Looking back on some of those, like some of the ones that really are imprinted on my memory earlier on, is that sort of the semi-final goal against Spurs. Is one that really sticks in my memory. The drifter, the one that comes across him and he just hits it and it just swings away from the goalkeeper into the top corner. Fantastic goal. It goes into Milan when he's standing in front of thousands of Geordies at the San Siro with his arms aloft. Should have won that game, but for a couple of defensive errors, that would have been 3 points in the San Siro and a little bit of history in the Champions League. The Everton goal, everybody remembers that. The boom when he hit the ball, it lives long in the memory. When he cracked that volley, fantastic, unbelievable stuff. Really, some of the goals he scored. The one where he sort of leaves Peter Schmeichel standing, not knowing what's going on. When he sort of passes the ball past him at the Gallagher end, and that volley. Chelsea scored another fantastic, probably one of Premier League greatest goals against Chelsea as well, where he muscles people off and smashes one in, all late in the game to get points and that kind of thing. Manchester United free kick, scored goals against Sunderland, scored goals against Manchester United. Portsmouth for the record, breaking Jackie Milburn's record. Alan Shearer is the number 1, number 9 in the number 9 list, and he's probably, Newcastle United fans could live till they're 100 and they probably will never see another striker in black and white like Alan Shearer.
Yeah, fair enough, mate. It's a great shout. Great to do these little things as well, because you know memories come back, etc. But Shearer definitely, my favourite number 9, and you know, I don't think there'd be any Newcastle player who couldn't say who'd seen him, who was. I know Malcolm MacDonald, of course, friend of the show, gets a lot of plaudits as well from the older generation. Some say that he was better than Alan Shearer, but Alan holds that particular record. Jackie Milburn, of course, people like George Mitchell can go back to those eras. We didn't see them, of course. So this was based, of course, on players that you'll have seen and you can remember. But Liam, been great, mate. Thanks very much for doing it, and enjoy the rest of the festive period, mate.
Will do. A pleasure as always.
Take care, mate. Bye bye.
talking to myself again. But it's the only.
And don't forget, throughout December, we're asking you to think before you tweet.
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 Please just think before you tweet.
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 Think before you tweet.